So let's take a look at the Stephen Foster All Stakes Pick 5 at Churchill Downs on Saturday. It comprises races 7 through 11, and this is a pretty good sequence. It's all stakes. You got to love that. First leg is the seventh race. It's the Wise Dan Stakes, a Grade 2 running a mile and a 16th on the turf for 4-year-olds and up. And I should mention, I do have individual postings for all the races in the Pick 5. For if you want more detailed analysis of any of them, you can find it there, as well as for the Derby City 6. So we take a look at this field, and to me, Ottoman Fleet stands out. The Charlie Appleby horse, he had a nice win last time. Chasing the Crown, to me, would be the logical next contender, being who gave him a pretty good run and looks to be turning the corner and moving forward. He has been content with finishing underneath quite a bit, but that last race looked like, from a race figure wise point of view, that he may be moving up. So Chasing the Crown is one to take a look at. There's not a lot of pace here, so I think this race will be run up near the lead, and that should suit Ottoman Fleet just fine. Just a couple others to think about. Johnny's Fireball, he's probably not good enough here, but he always seems to find his way into the money when you don't expect it. So I'm going to put him underneath. And then Win for the Money is an interesting choice. He looks to me like kind of a sleeper in here, but he probably more an extent of for underneath, I think. But he is one to take a look at. But in the Wise Dan Stakes, I think Ottoman Fleet is the one to beat, considering his back class and what he's run against abroad. Some pretty darn good horses, and I think this is a little bit of class relief for him. So Ottoman Fleet looks pretty good. But leg 2 is the FLIR Le Stakes. It's race 8. It's running a mile and an eighth for 4-year-olds and up, fillies and mares. And we take a look at this one, and to me, Scylla is really the horse who's on the rise and is going to be running in Grade 1s pretty soon. Trained by Bill Mott. You don't like to go against Bill Mott on a big stakes day, especially when a horse is on the rise like Scylla. Jagera ran her race last time and couldn't deal with Scylla. She had everything her way. She was inside. She was up near the lead. And when Scylla decided to put it into gear, that was it for Jagera. So I think if you consider that, and Scylla now has a more favorable inside position in a small field, Scylla looks awful good to me and is one of the better bets on the day as far as I'm concerned. You certainly have to consider Jagera, and she turn the tables on Scylla? Yeah, maybe. I mean, she was awful solid last year. I really liked her, but Phil Bauer isn't having as good a meet as he normally does on the Kentucky circuit. And really, Zagera didn't have, or Chikara, whatever, however you pronounce it, didn't have any excuses last time, and that's why I really like Scylla here. A colt for Chad Brown. This is a horse who always seems to be the bridesmaid, particularly at these higher stakes levels. I think this is a solid horse, but underneath would be the extent of my interest. And then Free Like a Girl, to me, is one that I think is likely to just, they seem to put her on the rail to save ground, and I don't think she has the top end to win this race, but to me is one that at a price you can use underneath with a fair amount of confidence. And Shotgun Hottie, I just wonder about the class level here, and I think the way she's been running, I mean, a regression is possible here, and so I'm not really keen on her for this race. So Scylla, to me, the one to beat with a high degree of confidence. Leg 3 is the American Derby. It's the 9th race. It's an ungraded at 250K, running a mile and a 16th on the turf for 3-year-olds. And if we look at this field, to me, this is a race, it's kind of like a recycle bin. You've got a lot of horses here who have been disappointments, most notably Moonlight, Laginos, and Agate Road. The pace scenario, you got Greenlight, who just broke his maiden in pretty impressive fashion, but really didn't beat very much and hasn't run against much. And he also is racing for the first time without Lasix. I really don't like horses like this coming off a maiden where they had it all their own way with no challenge at all from anybody. Now moving into the stakes company, so I would be against here. There are a couple here that are running without Lasix, most notably Depiction, who, if he ran back to the race prior for Cherie DeVaux with the 95 Brisnet figure, his career high, would be a solid win candidate here. But keep in mind that was run with Lasix, it was run off the bench, and it was significantly higher than this horse had run previous. And for those reasons, I think a regression may be possible. And I think you're likely going to get an underlay, particularly being trained by Cherie DeVaux. First World War looks to me most logical, has the less hair on him than any of them. He's coming off the layoff in the Penn Mile, where he ran a nice solid race in a graded stakes and is eligible to move forward. Tactically, I think he's going to be in an excellent position, and looks to me there's only a couple in here who look like they're going to move forward, and I think First World War is very logical. I don't like Laganos or Agate Road, and the main reason is Agate Road is pace dependent. I don't think he's going to have a lot here, and he just seems to be overrated to me. He never seems to really do what everybody expects him to, and I don't think the scenario sets up well for him. You could say the same for Laganos. He doesn't need pace as much as Agate Road does, but his last race, he had every chance at the top of the stretch. And it was kind of one of those things I noted in my individual posting that he looked like it was, once he realized that the race was out of reach, then he decided to start running. They just couldn't engage him late, so he leaves himself a little bit too much to do, and I think that'll cost him here. Same with Moonlight, if you're wondering. Now, Brilliant Birdie, to me, represents value in a race where I think it screams for an overlay. I really liked what I saw from this horse. You consider, number one, this horse broke the maiden, went against winners for the first time, an optional claimer of 100,000 and won. So that's a good sign. Is on a steady progression upwards, and I really liked what I saw. This horse rated from about mid-pack, had a little bit of traffic, didn't seem to bother him at all. Got a nice ride from Axel Concepcion and drew off in this stretch. The only caveat we have is that Brilliant Birdie is running without Lasix for the first time, but for Cherie DeVaux, this one looks to me like one that is poised to take a move forward, and at a price in a sequence that frankly needs some value. I think you may get it here. So I'm going to go with Brilliant Birdie, but First World War is certainly a very likely win candidate as well. Those two, to me, represent the best in the field. Leg 4 is the 10th race. It's the Kelly's Landing. It's an ungraded at 250,000, run at 6.5 furlongs for 3-year-olds and up. And I think that extra half panel has a lot of bearing on how this race shapes up. I like Hoist the Gold, the ubiquitous Hoist the Gold, who always ends up on these big stakes days somewhere. Dallas Stewart's having a lousy meet, but if you go back on that Met Mile on Belmont Day, that was a deceptively good race. He pushed National Treasure all the way around the track, and just when it looked like he was backing up in the stretch, he re-rallied and nearly got second from post time. And I thought that was a really courageous effort, and second off the layoff at the time. That looked to me like a horse who's ready to run another big one, third off the layoff. Cutting back in distance, I think makes a lot of sense here for a horse who, since they've put on the front end, has been a much more effective horse riding aggressively. Rivet, to me, looks like a project horse on the front end, and so I think Hoist the Gold could comfortably get the lead here, and I really like in this spot. Now, a couple others. Close the Game Sugar, I just don't think likes 6.5 furlongs. The last time he ran in it at that distance against Anchor, he had no response in the stretch. And the horse just seems more effective to me at 6 furlongs, so I don't think this sets up terribly well for him. Anchor likes 6.5 and has won at it. I think it's a good distance for him. I'm a little concerned about the top end to deal with Hoist the Gold, but is certainly one who would be a contender here. Anarchist is another one who seems to find second place an awful lot, leaves a little much to do in the stretch, and I'm not sure you're going to get a real solid pace to run to here. But I think is a horse coming in from California who's got Antonio Fresu aboard, which is always a good thing for those who follow California. He's an interesting play. I think he certainly fits within the mix. And if it really what's going to come down to is if Bango runs the kind of pace he normally does. Now, Bango has really been on the decline in his last 4 races or so. He's been, ever since he won that 11th race to tie, I think, or be the all-time leader in Churchill Downs wins, one or the other. He seems to be regressing. They've tried to freshen him up. It didn't work. He's 7 years old. Father Time may have caught up with him, but if they could get him to run a little more reasonably on the front end than he likes to do, then he can stay in the mix and have a chance. I'm not overly confident about that given his declining form, but he's one that maybe to think about in this spot. The problem is he's a sentimental horse amongst the crowd, and the price may be a little short. But he is one that I think the race kind of hinges on how Bango does on the front end. And then, of course, Tiano Twist. He's certainly better at 6 furlongs. When he's running 7, he doesn't seem to be as effective, so this kind of splits the difference. So it kind of could go either way. I'm just not sure he's going to have enough pace to run to, and he doesn't seem to be as effective outside of Oaklawn as anywhere else. So to me, this race shapes up the best for Hoist the Gold, and I like to take this one down. So we come to finally the leg 5, the Stephen Foster, the 11th race on the card. It's running 1 1/8 for 4-year-olds and up, and this is a pretty darn good field. If you take a look at it, to me the determinant, there's a couple of them. Number one, I'm looking for grade 1 horses, or what I think will be grade 1 horses, and First Mission leads the field. He's the 6-5 on the morning line, deservedly so. And the reason being is you've got a lot of horses in here who do not like to run a whole lot on the front end. Most notably, Pyrenees, King's Barnes, Dreamlike, Steel Sunshine, Happy American, and then Classic Causeway on the front end. The only chance he would have would be to slow things down, and if he does, that falls right into First Mission's wheelhouse. Tactically, he's going to be up near what I consider to be a fairly soft pace, and he can run at quicker fractions than most of the other horses in this race, with the exception of Disarm and Skippy Longstocking, who I consider to be really the only other 2 challengers here. Pyrenees is a horse certainly on a lot of people's mind right now. He's got a 4-race win streak, but if you look back, he ran the same way every time, not running very much at all on the front end, and consequently having a lot late. He hasn't faced a legitimate graded stakes paced fractions yet, and while the horse has quality, I don't think I like him in this spot, because he's going to have to do more running on the front end than perhaps he's accustomed to or wants to. So he looks a little bit like a paper tiger in this spot. He has quality. You could put him underneath. I could certainly see that. But to me, it's the fact that he doesn't like to run a lot early that gives me pause. The fact that he beat King's Barnes running with those soft fractions, and King's Barnes had no answer for him in the stretch, makes me down on King's Barnes as well. And I'm just not sure he's a grade 1 horse. So I don't like King's Barnes either. The 2 of them you can kind of pair together. You want to put them underneath, fine. But I think the prices are going to be too short. Ultimately, maybe not so much for Pyrenees, but King's Barnes you're going to pay the IRAD tax, so I really don't like him in this spot. So what does that leave us with? It leaves us with Disarm and Skippy Longstocking. These are 2 horses who can run at solid graded stakes fractions. Disarm, throw out that last race. That was a paid workout. He basically did no running at all. He might as well have been on the training track anywhere. It was a paid workout. He can run a lot better than that. And second off the layoff, I fully expect a son of Gunrunner who should improve the older he gets. Last year, he showed a lot of potential. He ran at much more stiff fractions than a lot of these other ones and was competitive. And he would be my second choice behind First Mission, and he could very well win this. I wouldn't talk anybody out of it at all. Skippy Longstocking to me was a grade 3 horse, and that was it. Every time they stepped him up, he didn't seem to respond. But in the Oaklawn handicap last time, I think he may be turning the corner and getting better as an older horse. He was in the 10 hole. He got right to where he wanted to, and then when they pushed the button, he was gone. And in what was a halfway decent field, wasn't a great field, but wasn't bad either. And he did beat the likes of Red Route 1, who we know what he can do. So I think Skippy Longstocking is a logical choice in here. I'm just not sure. I don't like him as much as I do First Mission, but he's certainly one to consider. For underneath, Dreamlike, if you watched his last race, I thought that was awful. He blew the turn. He was well wide. He raced very greenly down the stretch, and he got up for third. If you note that he's only got one win, he seems to be very content with second and third place, and I think he's, more one of those like cavalry horses. In the old westerns, the cavalry always arrived late, and so I think Dreamlike is kind of one of those. Can he get underneath? Sure, but I don't like him as a win candidate at all. Steel Sunshine, to me, is just a hard knocker. I think this is a distance probably a little too far for him, but this horse is awful competitive, and I think he'll keep fighting. And for that reason, at a price, I think he's one that you can look to for underneath. I wouldn't consider him a win candidate. I think it's a little too far for him. So if we look at our ticket, in blue, I've highlighted my horses I think are the winners here and the most logical. To put a ticket together, in what is a pretty chalky pick 5, we'll go 2, 3, and 5 in the Wise Dan. In the FLIR Le, we're going to single Scylla. I think she really is the best bet out of this sequence. Leg 3, race 9, we're going to spread a little bit, but I like 7 and 8 the most, and particularly 8 for the value. I think Laganos maybe, or the 6 can have a claim where if things broke right, they possibly have a chance. But really, the 6, I think a regression is possible. But if he runs back to what he did before, he's got a chance to win this. So we'll throw him in there just in the offhand chance he doesn't regress. It's a spread race of all of them. And then leg 4, the Kelly's Landing. I really like Hoist to Gold, but I'll throw the 1 and the 7 in there as potentially possible candidates. And then the Stephen Foster, I think it's First Mission and Disarm with an outside chance for Skippy Longstocking. So it's a $108 ticket based upon $1 base. But what I would suggest, and I probably will do, is take all the horses in blue, which comes out to a $4 ticket on a $1 base, and then maybe step it up, leverage it, and put in a pretty heavy ticket, because this is a fairly chalky sequence, and in order to max out our ROI, that would probably be the best way to go. But it looks like to be a pretty good pick 5, and I think there's some really nice races. The Stephen Foster looks like the most exciting, and I'm really looking forward to seeing that one. Hope our analysis helps you with your own wagering strategy. Wish you the best of luck as always, and can't wait till Saturday.